Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I have for you 5 books that I do not believe have been given the attention that they should have. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be talking about books that were published in either 2023 or 2024, so sometime within, say, the last year and a half. Okay, the first book that I'm going to talk about is the only one that I don't own physically, so we're going to start with that. With 2,000 Goodreads ratings, we have A Short Walk Through a Wide World by Douglas Westerbeke. I read this as an ARC right before it came out, and it just really captured my imagination. We follow the story of Aubrey. Aubrey is a young girl at the start of the story who finds a mysterious puzzle. After she finds this mysterious puzzle, all of a sudden, she can no longer stay in one place, or she will become violently ill. So when she's a very young child, she sets off with her mother to begin, and they begin traveling to try and escape her mysterious affliction. She meets with various people, she travels the world, she falls in love, she makes friends, but she also always is essentially alone because she always knows that at the end of the day, she cannot stay. She will have to move on from the connections that she has made. Aubrey is such an interesting character. She's clearly someone who has been, I think, stunted a little bit by her inability to make deep connections with people, but she's also someone who, as a result, feels things very intensely because everything for her cannot be permanent. And I just think that's such an interesting perspective. In terms of what has happened to her, in terms of the mystery, we kind of do get some answers to that eventually, but it's not necessarily the point of the book. The point of the book is the journey. The writing is beautiful. This is the author's debut novel, which I think is remarkable because I think it's just such a feat. This book needs more attention. If you like literary fantasy, and if you like books that I think are much more vibes than plot, then I think that this might be a book that you would really enjoy, and I think that you should check it out. The second book I have is going to fall into the romantasy subgenre, and that is The Witchwood Knot by Olivia Atwater. I think most people who read romantasy know Olivia Atwater from the Regency Fairy Tales series, but this is actually going to be from her Victorian fairy tale series that she has just begun with this book. And I actually enjoyed it much more than I enjoyed her most famous novel, Half a Soul. I think that if you are a fan of Gothic fiction, if you are someone who, like me, fell in love with, Jane Eyre or your Wuthering Heights or anything where there is a crumbling mansion and a mysterious brooding hero, then I think you will enjoy this. Our main character is Winifred, and she is a governess. She has come to this house to take care of the young master, and also, I think, to kind of figure out what is going on at this house, because everything with her is not as it seems. In this world, fairies are very much real, and they are very much the terrifying kind of fairies, not the sexy kind of fairies, which is how I like my fairies. We meet a housekeeper who is very much under the spell of the house. We meet the matriarch of the family who has known Winifred for a long time and has called her here in the hopes that she will be able to figure out what is going on and save the situation. And we meet Winifred herself, who is a great character. She has a history, a really kind of heartbreaking history that you will find about in the book. It is relatively slim, I would say. It is about 300 pages, but they pack a lot in here. I think that of Olivia Atwater's books, of the ones that I have read, this is the best one, and I'm really surprised that it's not nearly as popular as the Regency Fairy Tales. I mean, maybe we can put that down to some, Bridgerton effect, but I have got a lot of Bridgerton fatigue, and dark Victorian tales is where I am at. So if you like romantasy, I would read this one. Okay, moving on to a different genre, I give you The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. This book has 2,500 reviews on Goodreads, which is not too bad, but also it should be more. And I think the thing that handicaps this book is that it is technically a young adult book. But wait, do not click fast forward to the next chapter, please, because this is a young adult book that is 100% worth it. So I'm going to read you a little bit of the blurb so you can get an idea. London, 1883. The veil between the living and dead has thinned. Violet-eyed mediums commune with spirits under the watchful eye of the Royal Speaker Society, and 16-year-old Silas Bell would rather rip out his violet eyes than become an obedient speaker wife. According to Mother, he'll be married by the end of the year. It doesn't matter that he's needed a decade of tutors to hide his autism. that he practices surgery on slaughtered pigs, that he is a boy, not the girl the world insists on seeing. So I would put this in the horror fantasy subgenre, possibly medical horror. It's got some gross parts, but we do follow Silas as he is sent away basically to a school that is supposed to teach him how to become a proper young lady instead of the person that he knows that he is. And there's a lot of, we also meet his older brother. His older brother has actually been secretly teaching him how to become a doctor, how to do surgery, as you heard from the slaughtered pigs in that description there. This book is extremely dark, but it's also extremely touching and moving, and the representation in this book is excellent. I also would like to call out the cover because the cover is absolutely gorgeous. You should check this out. It is really hard to describe because in a lot of ways it is something that is unlike anything else that I have ever read. And I think that if you like dark fantasy, horror fantasy, medical horror, that kind of thing, I think you would really like it. I also think that if you kind of like that stuff, but you also like a Victorian story, complete with, mysterious boarding schools, I think that you would enjoy it from that aspect too, because there's a lot of different stuff here and it's excellent and it needs more attention. Okay, my next pick only has 586 reviews on Goodreads. Can we give it a couple more, please? That is The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wastelands by Sarah Brooks. If you've been watching my channel for a little bit, you're not going to be surprised that this is on here. This is one of my top books of the year, but let me tell you a little bit about what it's about. So, in this book, we are following a train called the Trans-Siberian Express. Why does this train exist? It exists because something mysterious has happened to the wastelands in Siberia, and the only way to get from Russia to China is to take this one single train that is run by the Trans-Siberian Train Company. The train is armored, it has thick glass, it has bars on the glass to try and keep out the things that live in the wasteland. Mysterious plants, creepy animals, even the people who have lived in the wasteland, it has done something to them, right? It's very mysterious. And we start as the train is about to make its first journey in a very long time because something bad happened on the last journey. 6 months ago, the train arrived back in the station in Beijing, and the people who were on the train have no memory of what happened. Our main character is referred to as the child of the train. She is someone who has grown up on the train and possibly knows the train better than I think anyone else. There are also several people on the train who have kind of hidden motives in a very mystery on the Orient Express kind of way. There is definitely a mystery going on, several mysteries in fact, not just the mystery of what happened out in the wastelands to make these changes. I think that if you're a fan of classic mysteries like the Orient Express, if you're a fan of books like The Night Circus that have, I would say, more vibes than plot, then I think you would really love this. The atmosphere in this book is just second to none. I felt like I was on that train. I felt like I was looking out the windows and seeing all of the things go by in the wasteland. I don't want to explain it anymore because I don't want to spoil things, but I think it's a hard book to explain. It is historical fantasy, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, and it's not, I would say the most action-packed book that has ever existed, but I just loved it and think that it needs more people to read it, so I would recommend this one. And my last pick is actually a book that I just finished, and that is The Dissonance by Shaun Hamill. Let me get the number of ratings here. So this book came out only at the end of August, so it's only been out for a few weeks. But having said that, it has 73 reviews on Goodreads, and I'm pretty sure that there were advanced copies available. So those 73, that's not very many. And I have to tell you that I am surprised because I thought this book was excellent and that it was different from a lot of the other fantasy books that I've read lately. I would probably place this into dark fantasy. It's definitely a modern day fantasy, more like an urban fantasy, although it is set in a small town, so I don't really know how that works. I've seen some people call it horror fantasy, and it does have some parts that are a little bit darker like that, but I don't know. It didn't quite cross that line for me to think that it was going to be a horror fantasy story. But what's it about? It is about 4 friends who stumble across a mysterious kind of magic called the Dissonance. And after they stumble across this, it turns out that one of their guardians has known about this all along, and he begins to train them in the Dissonance. And that's all going on in the past. But half the book also takes place in the present day. And in the present day, it's 20 years later, and all of these friends have been called back to the small town that they grew up in order to attend a memorial service for something very bad that happened at the end of their time in high school. My closest recommendation for a book that, if you enjoyed it, I think you would like this, is actually going to be It by Stephen King. And that's because the plot line with the friends who came together to work to something and then all scattered apart, if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Very similar. It's got a lot of similarities to It. And for me, as somebody that really loved that book, it's one of my favorite Stephen King books. That really worked. It's not as dark. It's not as scary. It's much more fantastical. There is this whole system of magic called the Dissonance that we learn about. I actually think Katie's trying to set up a series here, although I don't think there's been an announcement of a second book yet. But I'm sure if enough people read it, we could get a second book. And I think that you should read this one because I have not seen anyone talking about it, and I really loved it. I don't want to spoil anything. It is about 500 pages long, so prepare yourself for a slightly chunkier book, but it is worth it, 100%. All right, I hope I was able to talk you into reading one or more of these fantastic fantasy books that do not have enough attention. Please let me know down in the comments if you have any underrated fantasies that you would recommend for me, because I'm always looking to read something that is different from what everyone else is reading. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.